right, I want to bring in Charlie Gasparino and Mark Serrano and David McDowell on this GOP repeal push. We got into it earlier, guys, about easier said than done. Now you have one candidate after another announcing with similar readings. And one of the things you always get from them, Mark, is that this was a big mistake. This was a court overreach. I'm beginning to wonder, since only 3 voted against it, and it's Justice Scalia who came up with that SCOTUS care line.
Right.
It's Scalia, Clarence Thomas, and Samuel Alito. And those are the 3, I guess, true conservatives, and now you're dealing with a 6 moderate to liberal court?
Yeah, because John Roberts will prove to be the most prolific legislator from the bench in the history of the Supreme Court.
It's the second time he sided with this law.
Second time he got it wrong. This was actually an opportunity for him to fix what he did the first time, and he's gotten it wrong again. So you're right. I think there are only 3 true conservatives on the court.
So how does that change the dynamics? I don't think there are any legal channels left here, are there?
No, there are no potential legal challenges. The Republicans these candidates are going to run on repeal and replace. But I'll point to the fact that knowing that these subsidies could get struck down, the Republicans didn't coalesce on one.
You're exactly right.
One single, well-formed, well-thought-out
that's why
plan.
I think they secretly like this decision. It takes the onus off of them.
I go back to John McCain's plan when he was running for president. He wanted to put the power into the hands of the individual, give everybody tax credits, get rid of the tax break that businesses get, and just make it a la carte, let everybody see what they're paying for their health care. David was talking about that last hour. You get these bills from the hospital and they say, don't worry about it, your insurance is going to take care of it.
By the way, unraveling this thing is going to be very hard.
I think so, too. I think it's going to be
blame them for not having a plan. I mean, it's like coming up with a plan to, rewire the world. I mean, that's what we're talking about. This is huge. I would say this. Someone should ask President George W. Bush what he thinks of Justice Roberts right now. I mean, I saw John Sununu on the air saying that the first President Bush was lied to when he appointed David Souter, who turned out to be
that? Yeah.
I wonder if George W. Bush right now, how he feels about his appointment of Justice Roberts. Is Justice Roberts, did he lie to him? Is it just this one narrow issue that he's a liberal on, or is this what's going on with this?
Well, by the way, let me finish. President Bush oversaw a huge expansion in Medicare, the Medicare drug program.
Right.
So single payer, big expansion.
I don't accept this notion.
No, but President Bush. Does he support Obamacare? I mean, this is bigger than that. I mean, this is like a huge, huge change.
Are you talking President Bush?
Second President Bush. And someone should ask Jeb Bush, what do you think of your brother's decision to appoint this guy?
Look, with policy, you can't look at anything as impossible, right? So now the objective should be to get a conservative Republican in the White House to
That's
take
a
over
huge leap.
The party.
And I think what we'd have to see is such frustration and overwhelming victory on the part of that Republican that
it's necessary. It's absolutely necessary.
And I agree with the frustration part, but this is going to be like Social Security, Medicare.
Costs go up. By the way, how about the next appointment to the Supreme Court as well? Let's get a Republican.
But I'm telling you, this is baked into the cake. This is here to stay.
Elderly
really
people
do go up.
Well, then it might be a different matter. I mean, but I'm telling you, the longer this goes on, the more time you give it, the more entangled it's in our lives.
And it's very hard, I will say, until people really dislike this health care law and it impacts their own pocketbook in a serious way, you will not be able to run on it and win votes. Medicare, old people, Democrats and Republicans like Medicare.
Well,
all you can do is make the connection between it's hurting job growth, hurting businesses because they're dealing with the regulation of Obamacare.
That's now. The expectation is in 18 months or 15 months or 12 months that the costs start kicking in on this thing and the economic impact is felt.
But does your brother, who's a doctor, say that in 12 or 18 months they will, to the degree that they will change minds? Because I don't think that's going to happen.
Well, my brother says that it's very hard to unravel this thing given all the...
Your brother sounds very wise to me.
But he also says the costs are backloaded and the real...
But I'm just telling you, I agree with a lot of backlog. I know what's coming in waves over the next 5 to 10, even to 15 years. But that won't be by 2016.
So when you don't have enough providers because of the cost to the providers, these are small business people who are the doctors across America. The vast majority of them are small business people. Wait till this impacts them more and more and more.
If it does.
They're going to leave the business.
I mean, we don't know.
But
there's a question mark. I mean, there's a rosy scenario here, and there's the doomsday scenario that my brother has. I'm just telling you that if you believe the doomsday scenario, that's what the Republicans...
You know what? I had a good spin on this. People who are always frustrated with medical care and bills and medical bills, they never see any real real relief. So if you're telling them the cost of increase would have been prohibitively higher than they're seeing now, they say, well, it's pretty much a pain in the ass now.
Yeah,
right.
But you know what I mean? I think they're shell-shocked and beaten down like we're grateful for 1% to 2% growth these days. It's the same thing that applies. We've just got used to getting our head banged against the wall.
There's something, though, that is happening in healthcare that could change the way people feel about how it's being delivered and their costs. There's a lot more care being delivered at these outpatient facilities where you go and see a practitioner. You don't see a doctor.
This will encourage it.
No, but it's easy and it's not as expensive. And you have now with technology, you can communicate with your doctor, not go to an office, get him to write a script for you, call it in, and you're doing it via messaging.
I want to bring Heather Hansen in, guys. If we just include her in this mix. Heather Hansen, you know you're a very good lawyer. You followed this around. A lot of people expressed surprise here about Justice Roberts. I've wondered now if this court is a very different court. It's a 6-3 liberal to moderate court. What do you think?
No doubt about it. I mean, we've seen Justice Roberts in the first Obamacare decision. He wrote the decision, which was a big surprise to a lot. Here, he also brought Kennedy on with him. So I think we are, and we've seen in general through this session that I think 54% of the rulings have been liberal leaning. So without a doubt, we have a more liberal court. The interesting thing about that, Neil, is that so many of them are at the age of retirement. So if you look at the next election, one of the most important things in that election, I think, is the fact that this next president may very well appoint 4 Supreme Court justices.
Exactly.
And in this decision, they truly, I mean, when you read Scalia's dissent, I think it's right on. They rewrote the law. And if that is going to be precedent, that the Supreme Court now suddenly is able to do so, then it's even more important for the next president that we know what type of justices that person will appoint.
But bottom line, it's a moot point as far as this law is concerned, right?
Well, that's correct. And I think the point that you guys just made about the fact that, the majority of my practice is working with doctors. And the fact that now people are going to be looking to apps. Walgreens now has this system going on where you can do telemedicine, where you're being treated by a doctor through an app, which to me is extremely worrisome from the patient's point of view, because I think that it lends itself to mistakes in medicine. But this is going to be the future, because the availability of doctors is just not going to be the same, whether it's doctors leaving or just too many patients.
What do you think, guys?
This is going to be, now because of this decision, this will now be much more of an issue in this presidential campaign. And I believe she's right, that this next
You've got to have
president...
people annoyed and angry to the point where they're fed up with it.
Okay, but it's all about the economics, right? Our economy is not going to be dramatically better in a year because the same policies are in place. This is just one more economic issue that we can tag onto. And
but what if you can't? What if the American people are not feeling that palpable rage that you are?
Well, they feel a palpable rage.
The media plays an interesting role here.
Big role.
They have, defined deviancy down, particularly when it comes to economic growth so much. I mean, 1% economic growth, 1 to 2, is considered great by the New York Times. It was never historically great until Obama became into office. So, we'll see if how they cover this thing when the premiums start rising. Do they start pressing the outrage button, or are they going to be obsessed with Donald Trump's comments about walls in Mexico?
The critical thing, to steal Charlie's point from last hour, is how these candidates articulate their ideas about fixing it and how they can tap into any potential rage. Huge benefit potentially to Dr. Ben Carson. Fox News poll.
Very good point.
He's still 3rd behind Bush and Trump at the moment. He is an incredibly famous pediatric neurosurgeon. What can he tell the American people? What is his solution? Does it make any sense? He could get a leg up.
I think this plays into Jeb Bush's strengths. Right. Okay, because Jeb Bush is the most policy wonkish of all of them. He can articulate it.
Does it rejigger, Heather? Finally, to you on any of these candidates and who is in a better position to make that argument?
I think that today the responses that you've heard from everyone, I agree with Charlie. Jeb Bush's response has been more specific with regard to policy.
I wish you wouldn't have agreed with Charlie. It's annoying.
I hate to do it myself, but every once in a while I have to do it. The truth is, what he has said is true policy and not just sort of esoteric.
All right. I live my world in esoteric. All right, Jeb Bush, of course, was against this, and you could read that. He was, we were saying throughout and showing throughout all the candidates who oppose this. Again, for those who just tuned in, not only is this thing not shut down, but we're also happy to let you know that Congressman Mark Meadows has been reinstated on a subcommittee. He was kicked off. We had him here when he was complaining about that. I thought it was a huge injustice to move someone into a broom closet because they didn't agree with you. And then I had Congressman Chaffetz, the guy who moved into that broom closet, said, why did you move him into a broom closet? And now I'm hearing that Chaffetz has backtracked and reinstated the punished GOP lawmaker. out of the broom closet, back with the subcommittee assignment that he had. And the Tony Soprano tactics will not stand.
That's
what do you think of that?
You gotta get
Cavuto
Tony
power
Soprano.
right there. That's power of coast to coast.
Yeah.
Aren't
Holding
you
them accountable.
Don't you have a vowel at the end of your name like Tony Soprano?
Goodbye. You're welcome, America. You're welcome. We'll have more after this.